So I just want to start off by introducing myself. So I'm Belinda Murphy. I'm one of the career development consultants here at Griffith University. And this session today is about writing your resume, or CV, as some people call it. And it's part of the Launch Your Career series. And you might have seen that we've also got 5 other sessions available as well that you also have access to. So this includes an overview of our career service and career planning, also interview preparation and performance, advancing through the application process, learning LinkedIn, and also job search strategies. So feel free to attend those as well, or you can watch them back too. And also got some of my colleagues in the background today too, so they'll be assisting with the chat. So thank you to Ted and Alex. And we've also got Tim as well, who's part of our recruitment service. So if you have any particular questions about that, feel free to type those in the chat as well. So before I get started, I just wanted to do an acknowledgement of country. So Griffith University acknowledges the people who are the traditional custodians of the land. And I just wanted to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and to extend my respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. So just to give you a quick overview of our career service, so I know many of you are commencing students, so obviously there's a lot that we do. This is a bit of a snapshot. If you want any further information, please feel free to book an appointment with us. So these are our bases here. So you might see us around. So we're on the Gold Coast campus and also on Nathan campus. We also are available for phone and Teams appointments as well. So if you can't come to campus, don't worry. There's always going to be an appointment available. So these are some of the topics that we can discuss in your appointments. But we also have a couple of other services, such as I mentioned, the recruitment service that we have, and also Careers Hub event, which is our jobs and events board, which I'll go through in further detail later. And also a lot of events coming up and things like that I'll talk to you about. And in addition to that, we've got a mentoring program as well. So I'll touch on that too. But today we're going to be focusing on resumes. So these are some of the things that you'll learn from today. So describing key events and elements within your resume, so including the formatting, the style, and the structure. And also identifying and describing a range of relevant content. And this is according to Australian recruitment expectations. And you'll also be able to demonstrate strategies to articulate your skills, attributes, and achievements using impactful language. And we're also going to look at how to actually tailor your resume according to a job ad. So we're going to have a look at a particular job ad, and we're going to have a look and see how to actually tailor that resume towards that particular job ad, which is really important. So resumes. So I guess before we begin, I just wanted to give an overview. What is a resume? And some people already have resumes, others might not. So basically a resume is a combination of your professional qualifications, relevant skills, education, and any achievements. And it's actually based off a French word for summary. So you can see, so any relevant skills, knowledge, expertise, and qualifications in a nutshell. So what's the difference between a resume and a curriculum vitae, or otherwise known as a CV? So you've probably heard these are very interchangeable, which they are. Technically, there is specific differences though between the two. So curriculum vitae tends to be a Latin phrase, and it's actually meaning a longer resume for CV. So basically, it's typically longer, so 3 to 6 pages usually. And also it just highlights everything that you've possibly done, really, but tends to be more academic focused. And then we've got the resume, which is usually a briefer summary of everything that you've done, ideally 2 to 3 pages, and also tailored towards the jobs that you're going for. So today we're really going to be speaking about how to tailor that and include relevant information for the jobs. So you might think that this is a bit of a random number. So 68,013 per year. So you might be asking what this means. So basically there was a salary graduate scale report done by Crossville in 2022. And as a result, this was found to be the average wage of a graduate. So as an average, so they're not all going to be exactly this, but I guess this is what we can base it on. So I guess think about when you are writing a resume, is it worth this amount? And thinking, you know, what kind of impression do you want to have for your potential employer? What is the best first impression to make? So I guess a well-written resume is obviously important, making sure that you have the best chance to get to an interview stage, which is ultimately the goal of the resume. So it's a bit of a marketing document, really. So on average, each corporate job actually attracts around 250 resumes. So I guess how many of those 250 applicants do you think will be offered an interview? Does anyone want to have a guess? Feel free to write in the chat. Yeah. 20, 10, 10. Yeah. 20. Okay, quite consistent. And I guess obviously this depends on the company itself and, you know, how big they are, how many staff they're also hiring as well. So this particular study, this was the result. So this is according to the Glassdoor. So from research from that, so of 250 candidates, typically 4 to 6 will get called in for an interview, and typically one will get the job. So obviously there's occasions where there'll be more than one job offer, but this is kind of the typical path to follow. So I know this can be daunting to look at because obviously there's a lot of dots in the first section and not so many at the end, but having a good resume is obviously important for this reason. So you need to be able to articulate your value to employers so that they can actually see that clearly before deciding whether they're going to interview you or not. So we'll go through that in further detail, like how are you actually going to do it. So I just wanted to touch on there's no right or wrong resumes, ways to do resumes, I should say. So often I get asked, you know, is this right or is this wrong? You know, not necessarily. However, there are effective and ineffective ways to write your resume. So today we're going to go through how to make the most out of what you've got. So what makes an effective resume? So as we mentioned, so it's got to be relevant to the reader. It's got to communicate the value that you offer. It's got to be clear and concise, compelling. And as I mentioned, the document is a self-marketing tool. And so from this, employers are going to decide whether they want to interview you or not. So this is a study that was conducted in 2016. So this is the study actually covered some on-the-job behaviours from recruiters. And this is a really interesting study because the researchers actually followed 30 professional recruiters and followed them over a 10-week period. And they actually tracked their eye movement. So when they were checking over resumes, they had a look to see where a recruiter's eyes actually going. And so the researchers analysed which particular areas and sections of the resume were most commonly reviewed. And this is really important information for us because we know from this study that there are really important sections of the resume that should be highlighted, and there's certain ones that recruiters could potentially not even look at. So we're going to go through that in further detail and see, you know, which content might be overlooked in your current resume and what you might want to change. So this is a bit of an eye map here. So it's a little bit hard to see, exactly what we're covering here, but 80% of the time recruiters spent on the red sections here. So that's the red sections of the resume. And it actually ended up being these things on the side. So name, so your actual name, position title, position start end dates, qualifications, things like that. So it actually ended up being mostly the education section, which is interesting. So here, so this is the education right down the bottom of the second section there. Also a fair bit on the first page, so keep that in mind as well. So next question for you. So how long do you think recruiters actually spend reviewing an individual resume? So how long do you think they actually spend? If you want to write your thoughts in the chat. 2 minutes. Yep. 5 minutes, 3 minutes. 3 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Oh, getting shorter. Yep, 30 seconds. Yeah, great. 1 minute. And yeah, obviously this is going to differ depending on the recruiter. But from this particular study where the researchers actually followed the 30 recruiters, this was actually the outcome. So 6 seconds. So that might seem a bit alarming because obviously 6 seconds is not long to read anything. So I guess if you think of it that way, so recruiters are going to be really quickly skim reading your documents. So what's the best way to highlight what you want to highlight, what you want, how you want to sell your skills within 6 seconds. So that's kind of the main thing to think of going forward. So before we move on, let's recap what recruiters are scanning for. So as I mentioned, often suitable qualifications and training for the specific role, any skills or experiences that fit that role. So often there'll be a selection criteria or a job ad where they've asked for specific requirements. So making sure that they're covered. And also an interest or a keenness. So as in who you are, why you want to apply, things like that, and how your motivations actually match their company. So these are some key areas to keep in mind going forward. So formatting. So I know a lot of people don't think much of formatting, but it's actually really important because when you're only spending 6 seconds as a recruiter looking at the resume, it's important to make sure that the formatting is attractive. And so what I mean by attractive is ideally really simple, easy to read, clear and concise. So sometimes you see really, I guess, a lot of pictures and a lot of bright colours and things like that. And that does draw attention, but it might draw attention in the wrong way. So they might be drawn to the formatting and get distracted in those 6 seconds rather than actually reading your content. So just keep that in mind as well. So in Australia, there's a few different resume styles. And sorry, that's gone over the bottom a little bit, but basically there's 3 resume styles. So we've got reverse chronological. So that tends to be the most common. So that includes employment history at the beginning and, your most recent first, and then working your way backwards. We've also got a functional resume, which includes any skills and experience and focus on those. So that tends to be people that might have an employment gap, something like that, and they want to really highlight the most relevant things first. And then we've also got combination or hybrid, which includes a bit of a combination of the two, which personally is usually what I recommend, because if you've got reverse chronological in each section, then that way it's relevant, but it's also most recent as well. So I'll talk you through how to do that too. So just start thinking about what kind of style might be the best for you. So formatting, so selling your skills first. So here's just a few tips. So as we mentioned, so making sure it's skim readable, clear and consistent font and layout. Ideally a maximum of 3 pages. So some recruiters and employers will actually say they only want 2. So make sure that you always follow the employer's instructions. If they don't say, then 2 to 3 is fine. And making sure that you have headings and enough white space. So I guess you don't want any big chunks of information. And also making sure it's appropriate order or sequence and using active language and keyword rich, which means keywords from the job ads. So always highlighting what the employer is asking for. So we'll go through that in an example in a minute as well. Some of you might have heard about applicant tracking systems. But if not, I'll give you a bit of a quick overview, and there's also a bit more information in the link here. So as I said, you'll have access to these slides so you can go and have a look. But it's really interesting information. So basically what this is artificial intelligence programs searching for keywords. So as we said, recruiters search for keywords, but so do the computers and the robots. So I guess what you want to do is make sure that the recruiter is happy, so the people are happy. You see, they know your motivations to work there. They see the keywords and that you might fit in with the team, but also that the applicant tracking system is happy. So making sure that you do have any keywords within your resume as well. So as you can see, there's similarities to both. So this is what the applicant tracking systems look for. So they're actually really particular. So no tables or text boxes or random fonts. Too many colors, as I mentioned, can pick up as a negative. Also content. So making sure that you highlight any positives and any outcomes and things like that. Charts and graphs, graphics are not a good idea. So sometimes they might look good if a person's reading your resume, but just keep in mind, if the computer's reading your resume, it can be moved around and it might not be read. You might not actually get the content read. Keywords, as we said, and also just keep in mind with the file type as well. So some applicant tracking systems can't read all kinds of formats as well. So I guess to make it easiest for yourself, probably look into that a bit further, or feel free to have a chat with us about that in an appointment. Because yeah, it can be a little bit confusing with all the I guess rules and guides. So you might be wondering what to include in your resume. So personal details, that's usually the first thing. So that would be obviously nothing too personal, but your name, your phone number, and your email address. Apart from that, all we need is URL for your LinkedIn, if you have a LinkedIn account, which is active, by the way. So making sure that if you do put that in, do use it. Career profile, and then we've got education, employment history, any key achievements, skills developed, community activities, memberships, any conferences, presentations, sporting activities, and referees. So obviously you don't need all of this. Some people do have all of this, but you might end up with quite a long resume. So as we said, we're trying to keep it to 2 to 3 pages. And because you're trying to make it relevant for each job, usually what I recommend students to do is have a bit of a master resume. So you might have a resume with everything that you've done, in the last 10 years on your resume, and then you can cut and paste depending on the job you're applying for. So it's okay to have one resume that's, 4 or 5 pages that's just to yourself. But then when you send it out, just making sure that it doesn't go over 3. So if that makes sense. So making sure to always tailor and cut and paste. So for example, sporting activities, that's probably not going to be relevant unless you're applying for a job in the sports industry, or you want to show that you have good, some kind of skills from that experience. So like community engagement, for example. So yeah, I guess always tailoring it to that particular industry as well as that certain job too. So these are some things on what not to include in your resume. So I know that a lot of these things I do see quite regularly, especially age and date of birth, health, marital status, photo. Yeah, I guess on the photo as well. So it is a little bit confusing because on your LinkedIn, it is good to have a photo, because I guess that's kind of like your professional social media. Whereas on your resume, it's best not to have a photo, because of unconscious bias, I guess. And that's the reason for any of these. Well, sometimes conscious bias, really. But just making sure that you highlight the things that are going to be most useful to employers within that short time that you have. So as we saw before, if employers are only spending about 6 seconds on a resume, you don't want to waste any space with having any of this stuff that isn't really important. So always making sure that you just have that relevant content on there. So writing for impact. So often we see a lot of resumes that have what they've done in there. So they might have, for example, you might have your casual jobs, you might have any kind of volunteering work, and then you might have what you did in that job, which is a great start. So it's very task orientated. So it's like, what did you actually do in that job? You know, I assisted with customer service, I handled the money and till, things like that. But now resumes tend to be moving a little bit more away from task orientated and more towards your achievements. So thinking about every single position, or whether it be volunteering or part of your uni, project work and things like that. What did you actually achieve, and what did you actually lead and initiate in those projects? So I guess rather than just saying what you did, always focusing on what you achieved, and as a result, the skills that you developed as well. Because that's always going to be more attractive to employers as well. So often, if you, I guess, explain your skills and accomplishments, this can often be a predictor for employers to see how you might, how your skills might be suitable for their workplace as well, because past behaviours often predict future behaviours. So I would just highlight that too. So here's some examples. So here's some of the words for impact that you could use maybe throughout your resume. So obviously you don't want to have too many of the same ones, because I do read that too. Sometimes you see dot points that have the same word at the start of each. Ideally, you want to mix it up a bit, but ideally you want to have these kind of power words or verbs. Just remember that language does matter. So making it more engaging to read as well is really important to employers. So I guess this is kind of what we've already gone through a little bit. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things here. So keywords, obviously important. What to show. So show relevant keywords and phrases. So sometimes students say, oh, I don't really want to just copy and paste from the job ad. And I guess my response to that would be, it's okay to do that to a certain extent, because copying and pasting, I suppose, from what they're asking for actually prompts them to show that, this candidate has actually done their research. They've actually gone through and seen what is being asked of them. They're actually purposely reflecting back the skills that they're looking for. And it also covers off the ATS as well. So if you think of it that way, that's okay. You don't always need to change everything, because sometimes it becomes a bit too ambiguous, which I've seen before as well. And it's not as clear to employers that you're actually making that effort to address the skills that they're asking for. So move on. So this is just a bit more of a snapshot as well of what we went through before. I don't think there's really anything new here, so we'll move on. So let's go through your resume now step by step. So looking at how to work out what to put in each section and what we've gone through so far. So we've gone through the concepts of what to include, what not to include, and how to write a resume for impact. So let's look at an exact example as well. So what we're going to do is look at obviously a mock job ad and just see what kind of things they're asking for and how you might be able to highlight these kind of skills within your resume if you were to apply for this job. So there's going to be quite a lot of highlighters here. So just so you know, so basically labour market trends show that the inclusion of keywords and phrases from the position description or job advertisement is one of the most important aspects of a modern resume. So recruiters and hiring managers identify top candidates, whether they're skimming with their eyes or using software to filter the keywords. So what we've done here is highlight the job's values. So having a read through, you can see that they're talking about extending knowledge quickly, that your development doesn't end at induction, looking for someone enthusiastic, curious, willing to learn. So a lot of these are the values that this particular employer is looking for. So sometimes what it can help to do, so when you do find a job ad that you do want to apply for, you could print it off or you could save it as a Word document and actually start to highlight it yourself. So think about, all right, what is the employer actually asking for, and start to identify firstly what values that they're looking for, because this will be a good indication of what to include in your resume and also your cover letter as well. And the next thing is skills. So that's what we've highlighted for here. So looking into, all right, what skills are they asking for? So making sure that whatever skills that you do have, you're always addressing them directly within your resume and your cover letter. And finally, what we've got here is role match. So what we mean by that is what kind of candidate are they looking for and what kind of things are you going to be doing in that job. So how that actually matches up with you. So we've highlighted that in yellow. So there's a lot of highlighting here, but basically we've just combined everything here so that you can see. And sometimes, as I said, this is the easiest way to do it, using the highlighters. And then sometimes people actually cut and paste directly from this, and then you can kind of delete as you go, as you cover everything that they're asking for. This is another example as well that you can have a look at, but it's basically just showing the same thing that we just went through. So role match, value match, and skill match. Important. So resume. So now that we've been through this exercise, let's have a look at the actual resume and what to include. So professional resume. So there's 3 sections of the resume we're going to be focusing on. So the first one is the professional profile, which is the section which is generally located at the top of the resume. So sometimes you might see this called something else. So it could be professional profile, but it could be career objective, it could be career summary. Some people just call it summary. Some people call it about me. So there's so many different things that you could call it. But basically, it's a section where you can set the scene for the reader to read your resume. So this is a really great chance to introduce yourself and to start to highlight the reason for your application. So this is where you actually have the ability to speak to your values, role, and skills match. Because if you don't have a professional profile, so sometimes you won't always have one. Sometimes I see you go straight into education, and that's fine too, but you actually might miss the chance to highlight the values and I guess articulate this to the employer. So I guess keep that in mind as well. So I guess also remember the eye tracking study, where the recruiters were spending time, so reading from top to the left-hand side. So often you'll get the most visibility from the top. So you want to highlight everything really clear and concise and matching directly to what the employer is asking for from the start of your resume. So that's another good reason why a professional summary, professional profile or summary can be good. It's also a good way to highlight your language skills. So if you have good written communication and you could show enthusiasm for the job, often enthusiasm is hard to convey if you don't have a profile in your resume, because the rest of your resume is really just highlighting the achievements of what you've done and what you've studied and things like that. But this section is really an opportunity to sorry, I can never say that word. To make yourself stand out from other employees or potential candidates as well. So I guess anything that you can do to make yourself stand out, I would recommend it. Next section is education. And, sometimes you put this next, sometimes it's further down the resume, obviously, depending on how relevant your education is to the job that you're applying for. So if you're going for a part-time role that's not related to your studies, sometimes what students do is put your education down further, and that's fine as well. So this one in particular, though, is going for an employer that is related to your degree and an employer that's actually looking for graduates. So within this section, you want to really highlight your GPA if you have a good one, obviously. If not, don't worry, just leave it off. And you want to highlight any specializations that you have that are relevant to what you're applying for. And you also want to highlight any key projects and any other achievements that you can think of under there. Because your degree is so relevant, and a lot of the time graduates don't actually have that practical experience within that particular profession yet, your education section is a great chance to highlight everything relevant that you have learnt. So even though you might not have direct professional experience, you will have direct professional knowledge from the subjects and from the course that you've completed or that you're undertaking at the moment. So this also applies if you're applying for any part-time roles that might be related to your course as well. So keep that in mind. I guess if you're applying for a casual or part-time job, the GPA and the specializations and things like that, they're probably not going to be as relevant. So again, you'd probably have a resume that's for casual jobs that aren't directly related to your course, and one that is for that as well. You highlight that. So what you can see again is how we've had a look at how the values match up with what they're asking for, skills, and also role. So just highlighting each of those as well. So that can be another exercise too. Okay, next we wanted to focus on transferable skills. And you might have heard of this phrase before, but it's important to put a focus on these transferable skills. So these are core skills that you would have developed throughout your life. So it's more than just a specific job, organization, or even industry. So employers often value these skills and want you to highlight your specific transferable skills within your resume. So if you do want to include a skills summary section, just be really specific with actually how you've acquired those skills rather than just listing them. So sometimes what we see is just customer service, food service, fast-paced environment listed under each of your roles. And that's okay, but it's not going to make you stand out from other applicants, because other applicants are going to have that too. And without the evidence of how you've acquired the skills, it doesn't actually mean anything. So thinking about, okay, so if I have done customer service, what other transferable skills do I have? So obviously communication skills. And then when you think of communication skills, think of a specific example of how you've developed those communication skills. So for example, you might say, I have communication skills from developed through writing a 10,000 word thesis, contributing feature articles for publication, and writing a variety of reports for business organisations. So this way, employers can clearly see that this is how you've acquired those skills, rather than just a bit of a shopping list of skills where they don't really know where they've come from really, or they don't really add any value. Remember too, if you've got any questions as we go, feel free to type them in the chat and I can just answer them at the end. So if you think of any thoughts as we go, feel free to write them. So here is just another example as well. So I guess, looking at the employment section. So thinking about here, how you can write even, you've got a senior waitress role, for example, but you're applying for another position. You want to really focus on transferable skills that are going to be similar to the new industry that you're applying for, if it is a new industry, or if you're applying for the same industry, then what kind of skills are employers really going to value? So here we've got an example of strong client relationships, because obviously that's important going through different industries. And the other skills is work to team-based, demanding, fast-paced work environment where effective communication between staff and customers was crucial. So you can see already these kind of phrases are more, I guess they draw you in more. It's more of a bit of a story about what you've done, and it's just more interesting to read in general. So I guess have a look at these examples and how they're written, and you can base, I guess, your resume on this kind of language. We actually have a resume review service, which I'm going to touch on shortly, which can also help you to, if you've got a specific job you're applying for, you can actually attach that job ad and you can ask for specific feedback on, what would you recommend I can do to improve my chances for an interview for this particular job? And what the resume reviewers do is go through and say, all right, what are the keywords, and just making sure that it's written similar to this. So kind of engaging content. So we'll go through that service soon as well. And here is another example as well. So how to present your skills with the evidence. So like we discussed. So rather than just listing excellent verbal and written communication skills, there's a specific example here of a position that they had with the Brisbane City Council and exactly what they did in that situation. So have a look through these, and we've also got a lot of resume samples on our careers website as well. You can have a look at as a guide. So I guess that's kind of the most important sections of the resume. So now that you've created your resume, you worked on the job advertisement and completed a bit of a skills analysis. So I guess working out, when you were having a look at the job ad, was there any skill gaps? So was there any things that the employer was asking for that you don't have? This is often going to be yes. So I guess, if this does happen, it's time to upskill or think about how you might be able to identify those gaps and to, I guess, improve your chances by trying to do things like, it might be like short online course, any other program, micro-credentials, things like that. But it also might be things like just getting a bit of volunteering experience or any industry placements, internships, and anything like that. Can often increase your employability and your ability to get another job, whether it be the same field or different field. I guess if there's ever skills that you're not sure of how to address as well, we can always help in a careers consult as well. So keep that in mind. If you want to discuss your individual circumstances, we're always here. So this one here, so developing your employability. So this is actually one of our pages on our website, careers website as well. Sorry, it's a bit cut off there. But basically what it goes through is, just like I said, how can you actually identify how to, what am I saying? I kind of said it before anyway. Well, with your skills. So I guess thinking about, what skills you might want to improve on. And if there's particular organizations that you're really interested to apply for, thinking about what those organizations are looking for, what skills they're asking for, and then, how to work out how to build those skills now while you're at uni can always save some time later, rather than, getting to the end of your course and then go, oh no, I don't have, the skills that the employers are asking for. Often as well, I just wanted to touch on employers will ask for relevant experience, and relevant experience is actually quite a broad term. So it could be any volunteering or internships that you've done. And make sure to always think about those transferable skills as well, because I often have students that undervalue the experience that you've actually done. So if you've done any part-time work, say hospitality or retail or anything like that, that's all really important information to put on your resume. And especially if it's overseas as well, because a lot of the time I see international students don't put this stuff on their resume because it's overseas or it's not relevant. Always put it on. And then, you've always got some kind of skills from it. So we can always have a look at that and give you advice on that as well. We've also got some valuable careers and employment resources on our SharePoint site as well. So if you haven't seen it before, this is what it looks like, and you'll get access to this at the end as well. So basically, we've got a lot of different resources and how to support you to find a job, how to engage with us, how to attend workshops and things like that as well. Obviously, you already know a little bit because you're here today. This in particular, I just wanted to touch on because obviously very relevant to what we're discussing today. But how to actually build a professional resume is a bit of a section on our website as well. So we've actually got a number of different resume resources on our website. And you might have seen there's a resume checklist and resume overview and everything like that. So a lot of the content will be similar to what we've discussed today. But then there's also example resumes there as well that you can have a look at and just see, do any of these give you some ideas for your own? Have a look at some of the formatting, some of the content, get a bit of a feel for how to write. And also we've got guides to cover letters and key selection criteria as well. I guess to answer the question that comes up a lot, if you are applying for a job and they say, resume and cover letter, make sure that you always do the cover letter as well, because again, you're just thinking about ways to stand out from other applicants. And even if they don't say a cover letter, so if they say, you put your application here and there's a spot to attach your cover letter, make sure that you do still attach the cover letter, because that gives you a way to actually explain your motivations to the employer in greater detail as well. And then we've also got our resume service, which is online. So have a look at the link below just for further details. So what we've got is our upcoming careers fair. So that's actually going to be on the 1st of August and it's on the Gold Coast campus. So anyone's welcome. So it's your chance to meet various employers. And you can actually find the employers on our website. So I've just put the careers fair link below, so you can have a look at that and you can actually see which employers might match up with the disciplines that you're in. And you can also have a look at the schedule for the day, discover any internship opportunities. So just have a chat to them, even if you're not at the graduation stage, they're often still good to come along and just have a chat to employers, and especially if you might be interested in them down the track. It's good to always network and kind of introduce yourself and make those professional connections as well. For those of you who are on the Nathan campus as well, we often do a careers fair once a year as well. So that has already been this year, but there'll be another one next year as well. So Career Hub I touched on before, but just wanted to go into a bit further. So obviously that's how you most likely found this workshop today. But we've also got a lot of other things on there as well. So there's actually new jobs listed daily. So it might be jobs, might be volunteering opportunities, any internships. You can also book appointments with us. So there's a little appointments tab and you can actually select that. And we've got half an hour appointments, as I said, either face-to-face at Gold Coast, Nathan, or online as well. Also regular webinars and other industry events and career development resources. So that covers a range of different things. So what you can actually do is go to the resources tab and type in anything you want to know, for example, cover letters or, you know, how to find a job, things like that, and then different resources will pop up. Again, from those keywords. So these are just a couple of other things that you can do and talk to us in your careers appointments as well. So they are free. The other thing that you can do in them is, you know, how to find an internship, which is a really common question. And also, how do I create my LinkedIn profile and how to use it? You know, for me, I talk about how to actually use LinkedIn for research purposes. So how to find out, you know, how to map your career and how to find people that are in a job that you might be interested to do down the track and how to kind of use that information. Also, we can also have a check over your cover letters, key selection criteria, and we also practice interviews with people as well. So obviously interviews is quite daunting. And, you know, you might want to go through key questions and, you know, prepare, but sometimes students actually come in and they have a job ad and they say, oh, can we practice together? And I say, sure. So we just go through, you know, potential questions that you might be asked. So that's always fun as well. So you have access to this service throughout your degree and it's a free service. So as I can see, you know, a lot of you are commencing students, so it's great that you're here now because then, you know, you can access all these resources. You've still got a lot of time to do all of that. So do we have, obviously I haven't put in a question slide, but thank you, Ted. Yeah, just wanted to check if anyone had any questions about anything.